Hi there, my name's Annette with Sunbeam Fabric Art. Welcome to my channel. Today I have got a 2-hour quilt for you, and it's beginner friendly. It's going to be made with layer cakes and 2.5-inch white strips. So you can buy these pre-cut, you can cut your own. Let me tell you about my layer cakes. This is what I'm using for my layer cake. I'm using 25 10-inch squares. Now, if you buy a layer cake pack, it will have usually 42 in it. This layer cake, I got a giant piece of this cute chili pepper, hot pepper fabric at an estate sale, and I cut my own layer cake. So this part of the fabric probably cost me $1 or less. So come along with me today and I'll show you a fast 2-hour layer cake quilt that anyone can do. So as you can see, I'm starting with my pre-cut 10-inch squares in this chili pepper fabric, and I'm pairing that up with 2.5-inch strips in a white fabric. My 2.5-inch white strips are 42 inches long. That's width of fabric. I am just cutting them as I go along. I did not pre-cut them to 10 inches. To start putting this quilt together, all I am doing is sewing a 2.5-inch white strip right sides together to one of my 10-inch squares. I am a huge fan of chain piecing, so I am going to continue stitching a 10-inch square together with a 2.5-inch strip until I've stitched all 25 of these squares. Here is my little BladeSaver product. I'll leave a link in the description for that BladeSaver. Now, as I put these rows together, I'm going to put a chili pepper next to a white, next to a chili pepper, next to a white. 5 of my squares need to have white on both sides. I'm setting those 5 squares with the white on both sides to the side for now. Now I'm going to be stitching 2 blocks together, right sides together, making sure that my white and my black get stitched together. I'm taking a look here at the black fabric, making sure it lines up with the other unit. Then I'm stitching a 1/4-inch seam to join these 2 units together. Now that I have 2 units together, I'm going to be putting 2 units together with 2 other units to make a 4-block row. The last thing that I'll do to complete these rows is to grab those 5 blocks I set aside that have white on both sides and add those to the row. With the rows sewn together, I laid these rows down on my cutting mat and I trimmed off the excess overhang on those white strips. Remember, I did not cut those to 10 inches at the beginning, I just kind of eyeballed them. And now I'm taking the time on each row to trim the excess off. I'm also going to put 2.5-inch white strips between every row. So I need to know how wide these rows are. For the width of my rows, and knowing that I was going to need 6 total strips to divide up my 5 rows, I decided to join together 10 of my 2.5-inch strips. One way to join 2 strips together is to lay them right sides together at a 90-degree angle and then stitch diagonally across. Once that's stitched, you can cut off those extra triangles, and then you will open up the seam and you will have a nice straight continuous strip. You can always just do a straight stitch to join 2 strips together as well. So for the rest of these, I am just going to put them right sides together and sew a seam to join them together straight. When these are all stitched together, I am going to go to the iron and press these seams nice and flat. Now it's time to stitch right sides together my strip of 2.5-inch white to my row. I'm going to chain piece all 5 rows, getting the white strip on one side of the row, and then on my last row I am going to have white on both sides of one of my rows. And here is that row that I'm going to go ahead and add the white strip on both sides. I went ahead and trimmed off excess on the white strip overhang, and then it was time to put these rows together. Now there's really nothing that's going to touch as far as these white strips go, but you can see what I'm doing here. I'm pulling back the fabric a little bit to see where those white strips line up. And if it looks good, I'm clipping everything in place. Well, that clipping does take a little bit of time. I decided to go ahead and clip all the rows before I sewed any of the rows. So now it's time to go to the sewing machine and simply stitch this quilt together by stitching every single row. Now the end of the quilt, putting the rows together, is not the time to get in a big rush. It's going to get done. You're almost to the end. Don't rush yourself. Take your time and just enjoy the process. So this quilt really turned out neat. It turned out cuter than I expected, actually. I love the way the bright chili peppers on the dark black fabric plays along with the white, the stark contrast of the white strips. This quilt would look so good in many other colorways. What if you just did red and white? What if you just did green and white? If you did a light pink floral print, what if you surrounded it with a dark strip? Whatever your choice might be, this quilt remains super fast, super easy, beginner friendly, and oh so pretty. Here is my finished chili pepper quilt. It measures 60 inches by 60 inches. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you back again real soon.